Hello and welcome in. This is When We Heal, where we talk about everything healing and the people going through it. And today we are going to be talking to Vic, who is a visionary. Let some people in and we are going to get started. I hope you all are having a great day. We're going to have a wonderful conversation today. It's going to be extremely deep. I know this week and this month is Suicide Prevention Week. I'm trying to get it right. Suicide Prevention Week. And we will be talking a little bit about that as well as getting to know him and all of his, accolades, the things that he's going through. We're going to learn a little bit about that poly life. So this is going to be a really good conversation. I'm excited to start and have this conversation. Just waiting for him to come in. Hello, everyone, and welcome in. I hope that you're having a great day, that your Memorial Day was wonderful. We have some really exciting things coming up too, so I hope you stick around so you can learn a little bit more about what we have going on and some things to come. Requested him in. Sorry, babe, I don't know you. Hi.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm good. Let me see if I could. Yeah,
How was your day?
it's been cool. I actually just got back from California, so
Oh,
I'm back in Atlanta now.
how was your stay?
Uh, Pretty good actually. So my fraternity, we were celebrating our centennial celebration, so 100 years, and that was like really, really, really fun being around them. So, but I stayed an extra week and did a lot of stuff. Went and saw Kendrick Lamar. Went to Hiro Day yesterday. Um, saw friends, hung out with folks. So I
Oh,
really enjoyed it.
yeah, I was on Cairo day. It was too hot.
Yeah. I feel like I switched back, but I can deal with dry heat. It's
Yeah,
the humidity and like the south that's crazy to me. But the dry
that,
heat is fine.
that's crazy because I'm the opposite. I definitely love the heat in the south.
Oh yeah, nah. Mm-mm. Y'all can
Right.
keep that.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. Please introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are and what you do. Hi, Terry. Hello, everyone.
Uh, well, my name is Victor. Uh, Run the World Vic for those affectionately known as on the gram. I am an entrepreneur and creative and educator.
He's a visionary. He's being humble.
No, I'm saying, I mean, you said what I am, yeah. And I own a apparel and experience company called Run the World.
Yes. And tell everyone a little bit about like you growing up in the Bay and what that looked like for you.
Um, okay, I'm from Oakland, California, born and raised. I went to all Oakland public schools. And what was it like for me growing up? I grew up, I grew up in a pretty big family, an extended family too. So I grew up with like around. So for the majority, I was the youngest of four children, and then I had a sister later on that's younger than me now. So I have four sisters or three sisters. Sorry, no, yeah, four sisters. Sorry, I have four sisters. But I grew up a lot of the time as like the only child, and it wasn't until but I grew up with cousins, so I had like all boy cousins was like nine of us in total. So I grew up with them. So that was really a good experience. It's kind of how like I had eight brothers or seven brothers rather, and that was just like a fun time. I don't know. That's kind of a very general question. I don't know. Is there anything specific about growing up in Oakland or
No,
growing
'cause
up as a kid?
I say that to say for my next question because the Bay is either glorified or stigmatized.
Uh huh.
And this is Suicide Prevention Month. So before we get into everything, Vic, I wanted to talk a little bit about Suicide Prevention Week. And growing up in the Bay is kind of a dog eat dog world. You're either gonna make it or you ain't. And men, especially black men, have a high suicide rate.
Mm,
And I some of the culprits that I see are either sexual assault and abuse, not having emotional support because unfortunately men don't have that privilege. There are certain privileges, but men don't have that privilege of expressing themselves
mm,
as much as other people. And then martyrdom, which we see a lot as drug abuse and um, violence.
mm.
So, what do you think are some ways that we can help in the efforts to like lessen or um, combat that suicidal those suicidal tendencies that we see come from a lack of support in the culture?
That's a good question. Um, I, f- I feel like I think as particularly when we're talking about black men in particular, I think there has to be some spaces that are created for folks to be able to express how they feel in certain ways, but also to see people older than them, people that they look up to, also talk and express their feelings. So I guess that's the same thing, but I think it's important to have spaces and create spaces that are intentional about giving folks the opportunity to talk about what they're going through, like really. Because the on the surface thing is like, yo, how you doing? I'm good, and then that's it, right? People are so used to that they already start answering the question before you actually even tell somebody how you're doing, right? Because we're so used to trained to how are you doing? I'm good. That's good. Thank you for asking. And so people go straight to those answers. And I think when you create spaces for people to actually have time to say, you know what, I'm actually not doing good. Because even saying I'm doing good in that exchange is a learned behavior.
Yep.
It's a culturally learned behavior. So I think having an opportunity to hear people say, actually, I'm not doing good. Today was a fucked up day, and that to be accepted. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I think that's important for us to hear that more.
Yeah. And speaking of which, do you have like mental support in your friendships and your relationships, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So I'm fortunate enough that I have a good amount of folks that I can call on, and I do call on, especially being an entrepreneur. I'm constantly going through the roller coaster of emotion that it comes with being an entrepreneur. Some days I'm like super gassed and juiced. Some days I'm like, shit, I don't know what to do. Like, oh, this is going to work. And I have a couple of people that I call and I check in with who are gracious enough to give me their listening ear. Um, Whenever and as often as I need it. I actually have one check in with one of my friends that we check in every week. So we have a day on the week that's on the calendar that we check in with each other and we just chatting and talking about how we're feeling, what we're going through. So that's always been good for me because what I've learned for myself is I for me I know I'm equipped to deal with things, right? But it's just I need to be able to share it. I need to be able to like however I'm feeling, what I'm going through, and I think that's what those relationships that I have with some of my close friends gives me. It gives me the opportunity to just dump it all out, get it all out, and then go back into the world. And that's not to say that they don't give me advice. Definitely, there is advice given and stuff as well. But I think just having the opportunity to be able to talk through some of the things that you're going through, and then I'll just say, lastly, for me, I'm very much the person that will share if I trust people. I will share like how I'm feeling and what I'm going through, as opposed to just being like, nah, I'm good. So I don't feel the need to always be like I'm strong, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's
And so, what does that do for you? Like,
You said what?
so what does that do for you? Like that openness to being able to be like, look, I'm not feeling it today, or like, I'm going through something. Like, what does that do for you emotionally or even mentally? Like, what kind of release do you get from that?
Um, I think when you carry those things and you try to I guess mask it, it's this heavy load that's on you, right? So just being able to honestly say, hey, today I'm not feeling good, is enough to one acknowledge it, but also gives me an opportunity to release like that feeling. So it helps me in the sense that it just gives me an opportunity to kind of take that load off my shoulders. And you have to say it. I know people say like words are powerful, right, and impactful, but I honestly definitely feel that it's important to acknowledge certain things. And so I'm cool with just acknowledging I'm not feeling good today. And maybe sometimes there's nothing somebody can do for me in that moment. I don't think there's always like, I'm not always expecting somebody to talk me into feeling better. I just think it's just having the opportunity to say, this is how I'm feeling, acknowledge that, and then sit in that however long I need to sit in that. But to be able to acknowledge it, I think is important. So it gives me the opportunity to acknowledge it.
Right. So it's therapeutic in a kind of way.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely therapeutic. It's therapeutic, but then yeah, it gives me the opportunity to just release it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like a heavy burden when you don't say anything, you just have it, not too many you bottle it up, and then at some point it just bursts. So me being able to throw it out there gives me an opportunity to like recharge a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I talked about this in our last interview with Shanti about how, like, her bottling her things up led to her, like, basically having an emotional breakdown. And I was watching this um, podcast the other day where this actor was talking about how he um, was sexually assaulted when he was younger, and him bottling those feelings up and those things led to him not being able to have proper intimate relationships and being angry and things like that. And that's why I say, like, I believe that's one of the number one causes of our Black men having, committing suicide or having suicidal ideations, because there is no real support around that area, and there is no real support around um, men, especially young men, or like protection around young men um, being assaulted and then having to go through life not understanding like where they stand in their sexuality, what is it being properly touched, and then having all the other elements of like the world around them. So I think like it's very powerful to have an outlet to talk, like you said. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I think it is very much learned behavior in regards to people have exercising that ability to be able to share that I'm not feeling good, or how do you become equipped with those tools if you never have to use them? And so I think what you're saying is correct in that a lot of men may not have the tools because you can't you don't just innately have that, if that makes sense to me. Because
Yeah.
even when you're a child, the way in which you communicate is like by crying or making noises, or like that's how you like show how you're feeling. And I think that it's an exercise in those muscles to learn how to communicate how you're feeling. And I think that's a learned behavior. And maybe we are not teaching people, and particularly like men, that ability to share and express their emotions, like even in terms of words. Like how do folks even know what kind of language to use when it comes to sharing about how they're feeling, what they're doing? And
Yeah.
so I think that that is important for folks to have that language and be equipped with those tools. And we may not be doing a good job of giving Black men that those tools to be able to effectively communicate.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about emotional intelligence, but not a lot of understanding, especially around like the culture and how we communicate and stuff like that, and like
I'm
what emotions even are. Like you said, we're so used to good, like we don't even understand like what these emotions actually are and how do I communicate what I'm feeling.
And there's also even these small ideals that we don't even think about. Like we connect emotions to being feminine, and nobody wants to be feminine, or men aren't like there's this taboo against men being feminine. And so if
Mhm.
you attach showing emotion with being feminine, a man ain't supposed to do this because that's what women do. Like that already sets people up, men up, not to even share those things. So it's a lot of things that we do consciously, subconsciously, culturally that does not allow for men to learn to exercise those muscles of sharing their emotions and expressing them.
Yeah, I could talk all day about masculine, feminine energy and how that works, but I want to move on a little bit about like you talked about youth and stuff like that. So I want to talk about like, did you have father figures growing up, and like, what was that? How impactful was that for you?
Yeah, so I had the fortunate experience to grow up with my father. So I had a daddy. So or I have a dad. Like you know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
never that I always had that male energy and he was like my closest like parent. So I'm kind of like Boys in the Hood, right? So I initially like lived with my mother. My mother moved to back to Kansas City, Missouri. I wanted to stay in Oakland, so I stayed and I just lived with my father at that point. And so my father, and my grandmother, and so I already kind of had that. You know what I mean? Like I always had that like that male role figure, male role model in my life. So
Oh, nice. So that's crazy. So you like the second person, like male, that I've interviewed that grew up with their father and not their mother. Tell me a little bit about that experience. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm oh, I had my grandmother too. So I didn't I got both energies, and it wasn't that I wasn't talking to my mama consistently. I just wasn't physically with her at all times. So I can very much see that maybe that does play a part in my upbringing. I'm not sure I know every reason how it does and it affects how I grew up, but um, yeah, I don't know. It was cool to me. I never really thought about it. I wasn't growing up like, damn, I wish I had my mama around for this or this
Yeah.
or that. I could see there could have been more times where I feel like my father could have been a little more gentle in certain ways, but not even like. And when I'm saying gentle, I'm not even talking about like abusive or anything. I think I'm just talking about how he communicated in certain ways. I think sometimes as a woman, there's a way in which she and particularly like a mother can share things that can be a little more comforting, if that makes sense. So I think I did miss out on some of that at times because then my dad is also not like really a big talker, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't talk, we don't have conversation, but there is a level of like in depthness that I don't think he himself was equipped to deal with. But again, I had sisters. I grew so I also had damn near three other mothers because I had all sisters, and they were all like 15, 16 when I was born.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. So I had the mixture, but I think there is something to say for not like actually having your mother present like physically with you at all times.
Yeah, that's different. So tell me a little bit about how like your vision of manhood has evolved.
I think the biggest thing for me is that I don't subscribe to gender roles and gender norms. I just don't care to think that as a man I should do this, as a woman you should do this. As a human being, people should do things. And I don't think just because I'm a man that I should do certain things. And I really do not like that in certain ways because I think it's very limiting in how people can operate. And I think, yeah, and I think it's very like shallow, if that makes sense. So I think over time, I've, as much as possible, tried to X out that I should do this and be this way because I'm a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think what I've learned is how to decide what what it looks like to be me and what I want to do and what I want to contribute and accept that shit and be comfortable in that. And I think that's what I've been learning, particularly within the last like couple, like 3, 4 years, because people try to like you grow up and you don't think about it, but it's like, oh, as a man, you're supposed to be like this. You got to do this. Like even gender roles, as far as like, and this one always ruffles feathers, but I like there's some that I've agreed to you to accept. You know what I mean? Like, but I
Hmm.
know I'm accepting it because I just agreed to do it, not because like it's because I'm a man, right? So like the one of like pumping gas or taking out the trash. I don't really agree with those, but those are ones that I'm okay with doing just because like I don't feel the need to like it's not gonna hurt me. It's not gonna hurt me, but I don't think that my manhood is wrapped in my ability to take out the trash for a woman. That's crazy to me. And very like this is very low hanging fruit in my opinion on like damn like so just to be a nigga I gotta the only what like my manhood is wrapped in my ability to pump gas and my ability to take out trash. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully.
it makes perfect sense. I also wanted to know, that brings me to my next question. Like, as you grew and learned about yourself, what are some other like behaviors that you noticed? Like, oh, this is learned behavior for me. Like, this ain't me. And how did you go about like fine tuning who Vic is? I know you're still doing it. We all are, but like, you know.
Mhm. um, some learned behaviors, man. I think part of it is that like what we were saying earlier about I'm fine. Like I think that was a learn like just to say I'm fine and like as a man I gotta be tough and hard all the time and that's it. Like you know what I mean? Like nah, I just don't feel that way. It's like nah, you can share how you feel and you can tell your friends you love them and you can like show more emotion. You can share stuff. I think that's what I've learned in my time because or over the past couple of years because I think that I definitely unknowingly, subconsciously subscribe to these ideals of men being tough. We can't show emotion, we can't show pain. That's all the mental, and you just got to just keep going, and keep pushing. And lately, I'm just like, sometimes I don't feel that way. Sometimes I do want to just fucking cry, or sometimes I do just I'm not feeling it. Like I just want to scream and yell because this shit is hard because life is fucking hard. Like you got so many systems that are against you, and not just always having to just say, be tough about it. And I think a lot of times we've been conditioned to just be tough about it. Um, and then I'll just say, lastly, I think one of the things this has something to do with like gender roles and everything. This concept of like meritocracy for me has been a big one lately. I think that a lot of people have these I think one of the things that hinder us from being very communal is this American ideology of like pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you got to work hard and you can't ask for help and if I did it then you can do it type of thing and I
Let's
hate
talk.
that shit. Like I hate that shit so much now.
Let's.
Where it's like yeah, because I think that um, people don't help other people because like well I didn't get the help. It's the whole thing that we got even right now when people are talking about like student loans and shit. It's like well I had to pay mine off, so what are y'all gonna do for me? But it's like man, if that is the case, like even just how a lot of folks got their houses was unfair and we don't get that opportunity, the same opportunity. The GI Bill and these bills that subsidize all these loans for folks, and they were able to accumulate all this wealth via home ownership. And then also in that same breath, black folks weren't even allowed to get those same houses and those same kind of loans. And it was actually said in the laws and on those papers that you can't rent, you can't sell, and you can't loan to black folks in these neighborhoods. So how fair is that? You know what I mean? So
Right.
I just in certain and just when it comes to college education, there are groups of people right now that are still alive today that either pay nothing, zero, little to nothing for their college education, and now we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get that same education. It's not worth the same thing today. So that fairness, that meritocracy, I did it, so you should be able to do it too. I think that's something that we have to rid ourselves of. And I think I probably, for a lot of my life, had also subscribed to a lot of those American ideologies that I hate today.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought that up because that is definitely something that's been on my cards to actually talk about here on live and because it's something that I've been thinking about and I've been seeing so much of it lately and I think coming into entrepreneurship and, this being a different world for me, because although I was in corporate America and could run that, is totally different running your own business. Um, I think that I can pronounce that word, that meritocracy,
Yeah.
um, has kind of, sort of, and I hate this word too, but at first gave me a little illusion of um, what is it called? Imposter syndrome. I hate that
Hmm.
word. We're not using that here. But it gave me a little inclination, like maybe because everybody has this illusion of making it on their own. And that's not true. And I think it's
Hmm.
very dangerous, especially for our young people watching and wanting to get into this kind of work and or any kind of work and thinking that they have to do everything on their own or they're a failure, and that's really not true. There's so much resources and so many people out here that are not trying to take your money, that are not trying to use you to further their game, but want to actually help and willing and have the resources to actually be there for you, that kind of like also, you know lends aid to those people feeling like they can't talk about what they're going through because I got to figure it out.
Hmm.
Nobody's going to help you out here. Ain't nobody going to help you, but that's really not true because there's no self-made person that didn't have a team behind them.
Yep.
So we have to get out of that ideology that like we have to do everything by ourselves and ain't nobody helping me, because there's so much there's so much resources out there, and I'm just in my head just thinking about people, but there are also like programs that we don't know about because people are gatekeeping because everybody thinks that it's all for one, and
Hmm.
it's that's crazy. That is just, it's been pissing me off lately, I ain't gonna lie.
Hmm. No, it's real. It's so real, and I think that like the have-nots are the only people that get coerced into believing that they got to do it all themselves, and it's very you got to do it. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Like America loves to run with those stories because it sound good and it makes for good television and good movies, but it's far from the truth. And I hope that at some point in life that we can get more to like our indigenous roots, which is
Mm-hmm.
being more communal, which is being more um, I am because we are,
Yeah.
as opposed to like I did it myself and it's I. There's more of a we, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to get back to that because we are growing up in a society that shuns us from being about we when they are all about we. When it's all about we, the halves, and I'm talking about the halves.
Yeah.
We can even take out race in there and just say
Yeah.
the people that have, because it's really about the haves and the have-nots.
Right, right, exactly. And I think Coffee Black just made a great point when they said we are only we are the only ones shamed for wanting handouts when the dominant group exists because of handouts. And I want to
Exactly.
encourage us to really even start using different languages because it's not a handout. You know what I'm saying? And we have to start training our mind to think of things in a different way because handouts are used in a negative connotation. Like that is not a handout, that is a leg up. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I was watching InvestFest, and the owner of Chick-fil-A was talking about how his family structure is. Like everybody in in their family, their legacy is literally passed down to everyone in their family. Like your legacy is already planned out for you. Like there is no handout when you are giving your family the information. When you are giving people the information to help them grow. And that doesn't mean that they have stake in the company. They're like, okay, you're going to pick and choose once you grow into who you are and learn like what you're good at, which part of the company that you want to be in. And if you're ready for it, then you can be a part of it. But other than that, you know everything in the structure. And
Hmm.
we have so many people in our culture that has the structure, that are gatekeeping, that are not, and we are feeling like we're asking for a handout, so we don't ask. We're not asking the proper questions to the proper people, that none of this information is getting shared, and then we feel less than and go into that narrative again of, oh, I have to do this by myself.
Well, and again, I think when you say about it being like a learned behavior, it's definitely in there because um, typically they only allow one or two of us to get to these certain positions, to excel to certain heights. And so ideally you set up this concept, like you set up this when you talk about with the crabs in the barrel type of analogy that people always use, right? But you set it up in a way to create a system that has that, where if you, for certain groups of people, if you look up and down the company, you see representation of yourself at every aspect of that company, at every aspect of that school, at every aspect of that structure. You get to see yourself in there, in that movie, whatever the case is. But when you see, for other folks, you see one or two of yourself in there, right? And so when you have those, only those one or two, everybody's fighting to get that one or two position in that company, in that, in that movie, in that sport, or whatever the case is. And that sets up this competition that is not healthy and is not good for people, if that makes sense. So it sets you up to be like, well, I got to do this on my own. I can't give you information, because if I give you information, you might take away from what I'm doing. And that's more of like a learned behavior, because again, they tend to only let a couple of us do certain things.
Yeah, I definitely believe that, but it's also trauma. Like, Gen Z got this bad, and I'm talking to y'all, but oh well. Gen Z really got this bad of like moving forward. And we can't move forward unless we know what was behind us. And a lot of the ways we're getting out of this, thank God for this, economic boom that we're going through, because I'm gonna be a part of that. However, we're still in the middle of it, and there is still a lot of trauma from all the other times that we've built economic wealth, all the other things that happened to us in the midst, and we don't talk about like the stigmas that comes with actually building wealth specifically for Black people in our and for Black people. Like, we don't talk about like what happened to us, how like our families were displaced, how people were literally being bombed, redlined, all these things. And then we try, and one or two people, we see them building wealth, but we only see them building wealth in a certain way. So you think you got to get it in one way, and there's many other people who are actually building wealth, not the people that are being highlighted. But we have communities of wealthy Black people that we do not see, that are not being highlighted. Again, I'm talking about before now. But we did not see that. That wasn't something that we were seeing. And we got, into the music and hustling mentality, and all those stuff were being pushed upon us. Now we think that's our only option of building wealth, is to be who we see on TV. And it's not true. Like, we've been the backbone of economics. We've been the backbone of like creating and building wealth, and we have to continuously do it over and over and over again, because we're not looking at what happened before, and we're not preparing for what's going to happen in the future. We're preparing for what's happening right now. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, I definitely think that our ability to see different ways like that you can make it has been limited. Like, we've been limited to a couple of ways in which we can make it, and I think you're right. And we have to figure out ways to show and highlight more ways of making it for people that look like us outside of the traditional sports and entertainment and music, or which is still entertainment, but sports, acting, and music is where we see the most of, or where we feel like the majority of the wealth is being accumulated from Black folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, no, that was good. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So speaking of non-traditional, we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
move on into your live life.
My love
So,
life.
yeah, you you have a non-traditional um way that you go about living your life. Um,
Also,
in well, not traditional in the American sense. I guess as a poly man, I want to talk about this because I think this always comes up every single time that you go live. Um, and so I want to know, like, what brought you to becoming or finding your space as a person in the poly lifestyle, and then we're gonna get a little bit into like what that is and what that looks like.
yeah. So I try not to like box myself in for like with labels, but that's fine. For the sake of this conversation, I will. Um, I I just got tired of living a way that I never felt was natural to me. So, and I got tired of robbing women of the opportunity to make certain choices. So, because I was told that the way in which a relationship is supposed to be monogamous, I and I did not fully want to be that I was going around like hurting women because I was like playing the field and being manipulative and being um, untrustworthy, or if that's a word, or just lying and shit. And I got tired of being a liar. I got tired of all that comes with not telling the truth and trying to withhold myself from feelings that I didn't necessarily have. Right. So there were certain times where I felt like how love was described to me from movies and what I was seeing on TV. I didn't feel those ways. I didn't see the nobility in just being with one person. I didn't see the nobility in trying to control another human being and tell them and police them and tell them what they could and couldn't do with another person, all because of my ego, which is what I learned later on. Is like it's all ego driven. It's all about me and how I feel, and I'm just trying to make myself feel good by limiting another human being and telling them what they could and couldn't do. So that's how it started for me. That was my like, man, I got to figure something else out because I don't feel that way. I don't want to just talk to one person. I don't. I have feelings for multiple people, and that is fine. And like I had to learn that that was fine.
Yeah, I like that, and I think that's why I have such a like fondness for the poly community. Not that I call myself I'm a nice person with a poly mindset, but I think the mindset of it all. I think people when they think about it, they think about the sexual aspect of it, but I find that within true poly, because some people don't be really poly, they just be wanting to have
Mm-hmm.
control in a different kind of way of how many people they get to sleep with, which is probably the reason why people think of it just sexually. Um, but I think that monogamy and people with monogamous mindsets are limited to how much they can love and what their love can actually look like. And like you said, it's that control aspect of, oh, this is my person, so you're captain and I can't talk to anybody and you can't look at anybody, and it's just a world with you and that person, which I think is unrealistic because there are multiple kinds of love and not everything is going to be sexual, and there's platonic love, which I think is the best kind of love. And um you're limiting yourself and your relationships without being able to explore different kinds of people outside of your partner. And that doesn't have to be sexually. And I think monogamy locks you into this person and you aren't able to explore who you are or even get to see who your partner is. And I think that's another reason why people, get tricked, quote unquote, in their relationships because you don't even know you can't really fully see who your partner is because they may be a different person outside of you. They may be a different person around different people. And if you're not allowed, either one of you, to see each other in your different aspects, in your different elements, in different waters, then you truly don't ever get to experience fully yourself or your partner. So I think in that respects that like I love that about the poly community is that it's truly about loving your person in the way that they love. And for some people that's, two men, two women, a man and a woman, whomever with whomever, married and others.
Hmm.
But being able to actually, you know, see that person fully in their love language and not just their love language, but in their love is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think as I'm experiencing more, I just want people to be happy. And so, if you believe that your happiness is bound in like being with one person, then I think that works for you. And I think you just have to find somebody who honestly and truly wants to be in that. And I think people have to be more honest with themselves about what they really want, their intentions and stuff. And I don't think people are always as honest about their intentions or expressing how they feel to their partners because of the fear and the stigma around non-monogamy or what it looks like to be monogamous.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel any fear, like coming out as a
Coming out. This is
Christian?
funny. This is funny. You talking about coming out. That is so funny. Coming out. Oh,
Yeah.
I guess you. I mean, for I have a Christian background, so growing up Christian, growing up in the church in a lot of ways, yeah, you don't feel good with that, right? You don't feel good because of what you've been taught, and how people say life is supposed to be and how relationships are supposed to be. So yes, I had those situations where I was like, oh shit, like I don't feel the way other people feel, and now I have to express that to other people. But I think in talking about it more, like you just become more comfortable. I just become more comfortable. Like, and at first you like you sad or feel some type of way because people might think about you a certain kind of way. But at this point, it's like, bro, I want to live my life and I'd rather be happy. And I know a lot of people who are monogamous who aren't happy and vice versa. I just think it's all about your happiness and no one can live your life for you. That's what I've learned. So what somebody thinks of me is becoming less and less significant in my personal life because ultimately I have to live that personal life myself.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful place to get to of like knowing and understanding yourself. And if y'all not familiar with my platform, I am all about self. This page is all about you and figuring out yourself and loving yourself and healing. Um, and I think through that journey, I want to know like through that journey, in what ways have you found yourself a little bit more?
I I've have been able to be more comfortable telling the truth. And I think in a lot of ways, we grow up in a society that is not truthful when it comes to relationships because of our fear of hurting another person. And I've just discovered the liberation in being able to be fully truthful in a lot of ways. And that is not to mean that you don't feel hurt. That's not to mean that you don't feel jealousy. That isn't to mean that you don't feel some type of way about the normal go through when they're in relationships or with another human being. Like we know that those things, those feelings are going to come. But how you choose to deal with those feelings, I think, change as you learn and grow more, if that makes sense. So I've just learned about myself in terms of like why why am I feeling this way when it comes to this person saying or doing this? Why do I feel some type of way if the girl that I'm talking to talks about another man in a way that I like in a way of like she likes or interested in this person? Why am I feeling so like why am I feeling shut off? Why am I being short in my answers because I don't want to hear that. And why don't I want to hear that? You know what I mean? But why I'm okay with telling her about what I like, my desires, what I want from another person. You get what I'm saying? So like I've learned those things about myself.
Yes, that self reflection is so important. I love that because I think those are the questions that we need to ask. Why? That's my favorite thing to ask. Why? Why am I doing this? Why am I like this? Why do I like this? What is it? And that's how we get to the root of like who we
Yeah.
are and what we've been through and all of those things. Like without that self reflection or that shadow work, it's hard to really understand you and who you are and why you do the things you do and also why you attracting the things that you are attracting because that's a huge part of our energy. Like we're going through without asking ourselves these questions or asking our partners these questions and wondering why like we're attracting these kind of people or opportunities that don't really serve us, but that's because we're exuding an energy that is not for us from not being able to understand who we are or why we do the things we do.
Yeah, one of the things that subconsciously we feel like we one of the things that I had to had to learn and rid myself of this idea of like if you don't hold certain ideologies, then it it lessens your relationships, right? So people try to make it seem like if you don't just be with one person, then your relationship isn't valid. Like your relationship or your feelings isn't valid because you can't just do that with this one person or you're immature and stuff like that. And that to me,
Yeah.
like like I had to like that was some of the things I had to rid myself of like looking at monogamous relationship as the only mature adult kind of relationships you can have.
Yeah. Yeah. That is important. Let's see. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
No, what I was gonna say. But
it's
I
all
think
good.
that is important because we look at what is considered normal and there is literally no real normal because if you actually get to know people and like things that they do is like it looks like one thing and we all not we but like on the surface everybody is trying to uphold these standards that doesn't really fit into their normal life, you know, and like if monogamy doesn't fit into your makeup and you're looking at all these monogamous relationships, you tend to try and still recreate that facade or feel less than because it's a norm, which it kind of isn't. Like, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, there's so many people, not just in the poly community, but in the monogamous community that are like having threesomes and you know having to live outside themselves and cheating on their spouses for whatever reason. It's not always polygamy. Some people are just different. So like it's all of these other things that are happening within our relationships, but it feels better when you are going with the grain than against the grain because it's less scrutiny on you. It's less of a highlight on your life. It's less of a like like there's less of a or maybe it is more of a rush. You know, some people like taboo, so it may be more of a rush, but like it's the thing that you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. That was a question I was asked too.
Okay, I I missed it.
Heal you first, 101 or 1010.
I see it. Dealing with a man or a woman that is emotionally unavailable. What's your thoughts on that? You wanna you wanna answer that?
Um, I say this. I simply just I'm this person. You have to make decisions, informed decisions for yourself. So if you know that that person is emotionally unavailable and you know that that's something that you can or cannot deal with, like if you want somebody who's emotionally available, then it's up to you to be the person to end that relationship. It's not up to them. You can't say, well, why they answering my calls or why they still communicate with me. It is up to you to make the decision for yourself. Like when, if someone is quote unquote, I don't really use the term, but if someone is gaslighting you, then that's a different story. But if you have the information and you know that this person is not emotionally available and you know that's what you want, as human beings, we love to indulge in things that may not be advantageous to what we want because it looks glittery and shiny or we don't want to lose it. Now, you just got to be real with yourself. If, like for me, if I was in a position where I wanted something super emotional with someone and that person didn't want to give it to me, then I would either deal with that person in the way that I can deal with that person, or I wouldn't deal with that person at all. It just depends on what you feel like. I don't think there's a concrete, definite answer, right? I think if you know that, like some people know that, like I've talked to women where it's like, well, I don't want to be emotionally in this way, and one of the ways I can't do that is by I don't want to kiss you because that's a little more intimate than I want to be, like for whatever reason. And then it's up to me to say, okay, can I deal with that or can I not deal with that? You know what I'm saying? It's the decision that you make. I don't think you have to not deal with it or you do, but you just have to know what's the deal breakers for yourself. So if emotional unavailability is a deal breaker for you, then you have to hold true to yourself and not think that you're going to change another person. So I guess to answer the question, I don't believe that I can change anyone. You should not believe that can change anyone. If someone does not want to be emotionally available, there's nothing that you're going to do. You don't have a vagina, or you don't have the best vagina or the biggest dick that's going to make this person change their ways if they don't want to change their ways. You're not going to fuck them into liking you more or wanting to show emotion. It's not going to happen. You're not going to support them to get wanting to show you more emotion. You're not going to be loyal to them to make them want to show you more emotion. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a decision that they're going to make. And if you're okay with them not making that decision or waiting on them making that decision, fuck with that person. If you're not okay with it and you don't want it, then you got to let it go. But it's all on you. And don't take it personal.
Yeah. Yeah, you said it and great, but I think, like I said, this platform and what I'm all about is about self.
Mm-hmm.
So you really got to look at yourself and see, like you said, is that something that you're willing to deal with? But also, like, what does your communication look like? Are you communicating your needs effectively?
Mm-hmm.
Do you actually like know what you need? Like, do you know what kind of emotional support you need? Are you able to tell this person without, making them feel some type of way? Because sometimes we are so frustrated or so used to something that we communicate in a way that the other person is unable to hear us. And we don't really talk about that because sometimes we can communicate in a way that literally shuts someone's brain off from actually being able to hear you because they feel attacked and now they're in defense mode. So in what ways are you communicating your needs, and in what ways are you actually allowing um your energy, like what does your energy look like that you are actually still in a place where you are accepting non-communication, non-emotional, receptivity, whatever it is, like why is that for you? And is that something that you can continue on living with? Like you may be in a place where like you can still deal with this person, but you need to find your emotional support somewhere else. um I'm never going to tell anybody to leave anybody because being someone who's been in an abusive relationship, I understand now how hard those things are and the energy that it takes and all that stuff. Like, so I never am going to tell anybody to leave anybody, but just understand yourself and where you at in that relationship and how you feeling and where your energy levels are and if this is what you actually want.
Yeah, and I guess it goes on like what is it like? I think what you're saying is true because it's like what does it mean to be emotionally available for someone, and what does that look like for you? Does it mean like that you talk to them every day? Does it mean that you like you? emotionally available is like being able to be receptive to all of like what you're going through at all times and be able to be there for you, like to be that one person that you can dump everything into. Like, what does it mean?
Yeah.
I think, like you said, you got to figure that part out for yourself. What does it mean? And can you effectively communicate your needs? Because sometimes people just don't know that's what you need.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a great segue because you're helping women on here too. But I think that it is so beautiful that you are a ladies' man. And when I say ladies' man, I don't mean in the sense that you have a lot of women, although we don't know. But I think that the term for me, ladies' man, is a man that is supportive of women and can possibly be a safe space for women. And I see that in you. And I love that you have created a space for women. And I want to know, how did the She Is Market come about?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, again, I have an apparel or a product and a experience company called Run the World, and one of the things that I wanted to do was share so one of the things I remember this, I remember, so this is like, this is not specifically what it was, but this all helped it. So I remember when the Breonna Taylor thing was happening in 2020, and then the young lady, I forgot her name, see, and that's even telling itself, the young lady that was also killed or murdered by a boyfriend or somebody that came up missing, I think it was Florida. Um, and that whole, like all of that, and that really opened my eyes to how unsafe it is for women. Like that was one of the things for me. Was like, oh shit, it's really unsafe for women. Not saying I didn't know that. Yes, I knew that, but
Yeah.
that was the one that touched me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember writing this post on Instagram about it, and just like kind of trying to say like, not apologize, because it wasn't necessarily an apology, and you probably can find it. I'm pretty sure I left it up there. But anyway, it had something to do with just telling women like I want to be better, like I want to be better, and to be more in allyship and show up better for women, just in general, because it became a thing of like when that happened, like hurt people, right? So a lot of women were hurt, and I just saw them in my timeline about like nigga bashing, if that makes sense. Like we were just getting bashed. So in my head, I'm like, damn, I want to like I can remove myself from the words and understand that like these are people who have been hurt, who are going through some things that are traumatized by this experience that they've seen this one black woman go through, that they know other women go through every day or very consistently. And so I didn't take it as a super shot at myself, but I thought I was like, stepping up to the plate in so many ways, but I was getting my ass flamed for that shit. Like just flamed. It's not from everybody, but I was getting flamed from some people. Like even like old people that I talked to. Like it's just crazy how you could say that, and then in your relationship you was like this and da. So it was just all that shit. So I was getting all of that. So
Yeah.
initially, the honest to God, the first initial feeling was like, fuck y'all there. Like that was, I'm
Yeah.
being honest, that was the first thing. Like I'm trying to be vulnerable, I'm trying to do this, and like y'all like fuck that, and stepping on my little heart and my little ego and shit. So first initial thing was like fuck that. And then after I got over the fuck that and fuck y'all, I was like, all right, well let me figure out how I can better serve and do it in the capacity that I can help and be a part of, like being an allyship with women, right? So not necessarily, you know what I'm saying, not trying to save women, because I'm not here to save, but how can I be more in allyship, right? And so that's how I thought about it. And then that's when I created the She Is Market. So me being an entrepreneur, being someone who has a platform, who has resources, who have connection to certain people in terms of like selling clothes, all these things. I was like, okay, well, what I can do is I do this for a living. So I can create a space for women to be able to, who are entrepreneurs, who are artists, who are makers, to have given them opportunity to create and sell their product in front of other people and to push it. You know what I'm saying? Like have something specifically for women, by a man. I thought that was just dope to do, right? It's like now I want to be a part. Like I'm showing my allyship by showing my resources and giving my resources, and not just like talking it and typing it. So that was how that was my rationale for wanting to start the She Is Market, was to create a space to show my allyship for women, but to also just create a space for women to be supported by men and to see what it looks like, right? To see what it looks like to have something that, because a lot of times women, in particular like black women, that's who I align myself with in particular most times, is like, yo, how do I like show that? Because women, black women, are asking for help. They're asking for it, right? They're not trying to be strong and shit. They're like, yo, we need y'all niggas. Like, where y'all at? And so trying to show up in the way that I can, I thought that She Is Market was a way in which I could show up. And that's not to say that, lastly, I will say, like, one of the things we have to get away from is outside of core values and principles, everybody's not going to do everything that we agree with. So even me, like, I still have my isms, I still have my thing, but that doesn't negate the work that I want to do, or vice versa for anyone else. I might not agree with one thing, or whether it's like, I don't agree with the way you live your lifestyle, and I don't think you should be talking to multiple women, but that doesn't take away from my ability to be able to bring 20 plus women vendors into a space, and hundreds of shoppers come in to support those businesses. That doesn't take away from that. And I think we have sometimes we have such rigid ideas of like who can help, who can be of service to people, that I think that it hinders us, because we are holding people to a standard that we don't even hold ourselves to. So I just want to make sure I said that at the end of that.
I love that you said that, and it's crazy because that story gave me goosebumps. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I made a post too when I got flamed, but I'm gonna tell you in a different way.
Uh-huh.
But I'm gonna tell you why. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I have like a different perspective on that time. So I remember when that happened, and I had woke up in the middle of the night, and I just so happened to get on Facebook, I think, and a comedian was writing a similar post as you. And I remember thinking, and it was a beautiful post, and I remember thinking like, oh wow, I'm gonna read these comments because I just know these comments are going to be filled with, you know, support. And it wasn't. I went through probably about way too many comments than I care to share. But I went
Mm-hmm.
through a lot of the comments, and it was so much hate from black men. I cried all day. Like, I had to call off work. I cried all day because this was not only just a black woman, like, this was a black woman that was actually fighting for black men. And it was like the amount of hate was crazy. And I don't think I've seen probably about 2 or 3 comments that were like in support, and everything else was negative. And I remember just crying because black women don't get enough support. Like, we are expected to be the backbones, and yet even when our back is hurting, like, there is no support, and it was just hurtful for me because as a black woman and a black person who absolutely love black people, period, especially black men, I just felt like, where's our common ground? Like, why do
Mm-hmm.
we hurt each, like, why? I know why, but like, at this time where there is so much opportunity for us to be together,
Mm-hmm.
why is there so much hate? And it was like, it was so sad, it was heartbreaking for me. And I posted a post on my Instagram, and I was just like, like, why do y'all hate us so much? Like, what we do? And the black men was coming for me. Oh, they was coming for me. They was coming for me. But once I explained to them, like, do you truly support black women, or do you only support the black women that you like?
Mm-hmm.
The ones
Yeah,
that you find attractive,
attractive.
the
Mm-hmm.
ones that that you, even if they're not attractive, the ones that are you truly supporting black women, or is it just the people that you like? And a lot of them changed their perspective because it went from, I love black women, or what are you talking about, and you being divisive, to like, you got a point. Like, you really
Mm-hmm.
got a point, because we don't point out the fact that we do need y'all. Like, we need y'all, and we need y'all support in a lot more ways than just one. Like, we need each other, and we need to find that common ground of how we can be supportive and be each other's backbone.
And
And I love that you decided to create something in support of and not just surrounded by you, but in support of women, especially Black women.
yeah, and yeah, and I agree that like there has to be some common ground. Like there has to be some common ground where if we want someone to change, we also have like I get this thing. I don't want to do the work for you, right? So that was one of the things that was kept being told to me. Is like I don't want to do the work for you. You got to do the work yourself.
Yeah.
But there is also a level of like I don't know what support looks like for you all because in what I'm doing, I thought that was me sharing, like me supporting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we people have been going we particularly like women, particularly Black women, have been going through a lot of shit, and we all are dealing with a lot of shit. But how do we come together and work with each other and like leave ego, leave hurt, past hurts and trauma like at the door, and really come up to the table trying to figure out how we can be in better support of each other is something that I am very um, that I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of that because again, for me, it's like I don't know all the time how I can support, and doing the work definitely means talking with people who understands what that looks like. You know what I mean? Like because or understand what they want. Because as a woman, I'm not a woman, so I don't know what it looks like for a woman to feel supported. I know what it looks like for me to show support, but I don't know if that's even how it is being received. You know what I'm saying? It can be as simple as even when you have a partner, right? You have a partner, and the way you show support is by giving gifts. And what they really want is quality time.
Yeah.
And so you're not around, but you thought you was giving and showing support and being there for that person because you was buying them shit and taking them places and stuff or giving them stuff. And they really wanted just your quality time. They said, you can eliminate all the shit you bought me just by being there, giving me 2 or 3 days or a day and a half, or it's just you and I, where you're not on your phone, where you're not doing this.
Yeah.
And the other person just doesn't know that. And so I think that while there is rightfully so, there's hurt and there's anger that's associated with some of the expressions that you get from certain people because of what they've dealt with. But after you get past that part, right? After you get past the hurt, the pain, the frustration, we still got to figure out how we're going to be there to support each other. Because if you really want niggas to be there, some of it is going to be you got to tell them how you want them, and then at that point, you can wash your hands with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's at that point you can wash your hands with it. And I'm not saying that women don't and women have not done that. But I do know in some aspects, I know I've definitely been in a situation where I'm like, well, what do you need? And it was like, I don't know, nigga, do the work. Nigga, do the work.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, all right, well, I don't know what that looks like, but bet. I'm going to keep trying to I'm going to throw some darts at the board. Hopefully I hit at some point.
Right. And that goes back to that self reflection. I think, even as a whole and as a collective, we need to start getting together and finding that sense of self and togetherness. And I think it also calls for, like you say, you're doing the work, but it also calls for consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Once there is a consistency and we know that this is a safe space, then we can continue to build on that, because there is trust issues, there is hurt, that people ain't dealing with parental issues. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So how can we have actual relationships and your idea of relationships are skewed?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we come to a collective agreement if our collective is broken and
Yeah.
nobody, and when I say broken, because I hate to use that word, but when I say broken, I mean like chipped, because we can always, pour something to sip
Fix it.
it and grow stronger, because there is a lot of hurt there, and that pain can feel like
Mm-hmm.
broken pieces of glass.
And
So
my
go ahead.
And I was just gonna add, like, and my question just becomes like, as a collective, as the particularly we talk about the Black community, as the Black community, how what are our core values and principles, and what is our core and common goal, and use that as the focal point, and everything else can be divisive, can be you know what I'm saying, but there has to be a level of elementary like roots that we all abide by. And I think at this point in time, we may have to really sit down as a community, which is definitely difficult to do because of all the things that everybody's bringing to the table.
Yeah.
But to really figure out like how do we be there for each other, because it hurts. It does not feel good to see women on Instagram on live. Like just I know it feels bad for women because niggas on there giving unsolicited advice and bashing the shit out of women like every day. So I know that don't feel good. Like I know that don't feel good. So as niggas, like we got to get over that shit. And then on the other end, it's like it don't feel good to be hearing like, yo, I don't feel like y'all support us, nigga. Black men, y'all ain't stepping up, y'all ain't here. And it might be that experience for that person, but like, how do we hear that person, take away ourselves, our ego, and figure out how do we show up for each other? Is really like what we have to do
Yeah.
outside of like my own personal experiences is like how do we show up for each other. And I think you said like building trust, but then even in that the question becomes how do you build trust with between amongst us
Yeah.
once yeah. So yeah, but niggas get flamed every day on social media, B. So that's why I'm just like, bro,
Man, there we
I'm
go.
just gonna do it on my life. I'm doing it the way I want to do it at this point.
Yeah, but that's important. Is like I said, it's being able to see that, showing up, being an example, if you will, and being consistent. Because once people see that you're consistent and this is actually a thing, it's something they can look forward to. Because like we always say, like you can't be what you can't see, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what you don't know. So if they don't
Mm-hmm.
know that there are men out there that are actually supportive, if women don't know that there are people who are continuously working on themselves to become better, then how do we actually know and understand that there is a space that we can, or there's room for this opportunity of growth within one another, especially when all you know is trauma. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that will be the camel that breaks us through, is
Mm-hmm.
our collective healing, because
Mm-hmm.
there is so much trauma and we are layering trauma on trauma, and you know, continuously seeing trauma on social
Mm-hmm.
media. It's just a continuous flow of us being in a reactive mode and not really having those communities, not really having those spaces on a larger collective. And I think it would have to start with either people that people respect, and or larger
Mm-hmm.
formations,
Yeah.
for people to actually get in there and we understand like the areas that we need to heal.
So one of the things for me in that is like you when you talked about this is like knowing self, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, everybody can't show support in a way that everybody wants, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I say that to say that like like everybody can't. Everybody ain't equipped to be on social media like fighting everybody in the comments. Like everybody can't do that, but people have to figure out what they can do, if that makes sense. So part of it for me is like it's not always even for me. I don't just do it by me having the market. Even though people like come to Picks and Hot Comb shit for like entertainment and it's funny and it's fun, I also think in that I'm trying to model what it is like to have a conversation with a woman and disagree, but not be like over forcing forward, trying to cuss her out or calling her bitches and doing hella shit.
Yeah.
Even that, modeling that, like, okay, we can have a conversation, we can not agree, but it don't that disagreement can look a certain way. It don't have to look like fuck you nigga or fuck you girl or whatever the case is. And so like people have to figure out ways in which they can be a part of it, right? And everybody's way of being a part of everybody's ministry isn't the same, if that makes sense.
Exactly. And I think, like I said, I think on a larger scale, it would look like something like a Black Equity Con or something like that for our community, where like not everybody is in crypto, not everybody is doing things, but everybody got their space and everybody is talking about and in a collective space of how we need to go about things and what are our pain points and stuff like that. I think that would be amazing. That is my dream, y'all. So if y'all want to get together in Rebellion for healing, y'all know where to find me.
Yeah.
And in my last one, I want you to talk about the Run Your World clothing brand, because when I tell y'all, he is a visionary. He is a visionary. It is amazing. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, so Run the World is a community empowerment brand that uses apparel and experiences to share narratives of Black history, Black culture, Black radical thought. And so I really love using it. I have an education background. I majored in African American studies with a minor in education. And one of my favorite quotes in the world comes from Carter G. Woodson, where he says, if you can control the way a person thinks, then you can control their actions. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned is the ability to withhold or share whatever kind of information you can with somebody and get them to believe that information is the strongest thing that people can do, right? So if you only share with people history about them being enslaved, then what are they going to think about themselves? If you don't show that they have, if you don't teach them that they have contributions to the society outside of slavery, then they're going to believe that. Like, you know what I mean? And you don't have to do anything. Like, that's the most powerful thing. Like, if you can control the way a person thinks, then you don't have to even worry about what they do.
Yeah.
Like, so with that, I had experiences where when I learned some certain kind of information, it changed the way I looked at myself. It changed the way I looked at the world, and it made me be a different person in a very good way, if I say so myself. So I wanted to create a platform and create a company that could share information that you didn't have to be like these events ideologies, these events topics, these events theories and historical like lenses and perspectives through apparel in a way that can be easily digestible for the everyday person who doesn't get excitement out of reading or reading isn't there or that isn't their way of which they learn, right? Some people are textile learners. And so I wanted to create a platform for folks to be able to learn information about themselves and about Black folks, ultimately, so that Black folks and our allies can celebrate the Black experience and understand and learn about it. And so I use my clothing as a way to share those stories. So if you look at these, I got these pins on here, on this hat. This is from our last collection we did called Black is Beautiful. Black is an acronym for Black Liberation and Cultural Knowledge. And as you can see, we have these three symbols right here. I'll talk about this one too. These three symbols, 1, 2, and 3. The flower represents the beauty of Blackness. The lightning bolt represents the liberation of Black folks, and then the light bulb represents the knowledge, or represents knowledge. And so we're always and constantly trying to figure out ways to tell stories about Black folks. And so this was a story I wanted to tell around the 70s where Black folks actually started and began to actually identify as Black. So late 60s through the 70s is when Black folks actually started to say, I'm Black and I'm proud. So the question becomes then what was happening during that time that made it so Black people wanted to be called Black? Because before then, if you called a nigga Black, it was damn near calling him a nigga at that point, right? So calling somebody Black in the 60s and the 50s was like calling somebody a nigga. And so what happened? What was happening at that time that made it so Black people started wearing afros, obnoxiously big ass afros, and wearing dashikis, and you get Kwanzaa and all these different celebrations, and you get James Brown's "I'm Black and I'm Proud." You get the Black Power movement. You get all these things that happens throughout in the 70s. And so I wanted to create a clothing line that, or I wanted to create a collection that represented that. So that gives you an idea of how we use our apparel to literally educate, empower, and inspire around Black culture, Black history, Black radical thought.
And it's amazing. If y'all haven't seen it, please check it out. Talk a little bit about your incorporation of AI in there.
Oh, AI, yeah. So we've just started doing this more, and we're going to do it a lot more moving forward. So we're incorporating AI into our products where like you can actually use an application which is created by a Black man, put it on point it at our shirt, and then some other media form will play on the shirt. So it could be a video about something on the shirt. It can be the actual like thing talking. It can just be different things. So we've only incorporated 3 times lately. So we have 3 shirts where you can do it, right? You have the James Baldwin shirt, you have the Richard Pryor shirt, and then you have a shirt after the Black Liberation Dream Team shirt. And so those 3 shirts incorporate AI. And so if you have those shirts and you download this app called Black Terminus, you will be able to point the phone at your T-shirt, and it'll play a video. So ideally, we wanted to highlight people that people may not know much about, right? So we know about the Rosa Parks, the the Martin Luther Kings, the Angela Davises. We know about the Huey P. Newtons, but there are a lot of other people throughout history that I think had very significant impacts on our history, and I thought it was good to like highlight them as well, and so you can learn information about them. Hopefully, that makes people more interested or more curious about other people that they may see on my shirt or my product. But it's not limited to just people.
Yeah.
So as we go forward, it'll be more on like concepts and ideas as well.
I told y'all, visionary. It's
Yes.
amazing.
So we out here.
Him out. Tell the people where they can actually find you, your website, all of that.
Yep. So you can find me on Instagram at Run the World Vic, and if you want to follow our clothing page, you can follow Run the World Clothing. And if you would like to buy some of our wares or products, you can go to runtheworldclothing.com. So anywhere that I frequent, I'm Run the World Vic, and we have variations of Run the World Clothing on most platforms. So yeah, mess with us, man. We out here we're doing good stuff. Um, and support because you find value in what I'm doing, not just because I'm black. That's one of my new models. I'm just gonna be honest because I never seen a nigga go to Nike and say, "Yeah, bro, I just went to Nike right quick to support Nike." Nah, you go buy the clothes and you go buy Nike, Gucci, Louis, all that stuff because you like it and it gives you value. So please buy my stuff because you see the value. And I just so happen to be a handsome black man selling it. So you feel me? Um, yeah, so we are actually technically based in Oakland, California. Yes.
Yes. And just buy. Just buy. Buy, buy, buy.
Yeah.
Support.
Yes.
Support this black man. Support black businesses. Support the movement because I think that that is an amazing, amazing thing, and it's definitely necessary for us to continue to keep our history and our people alive. I just was on a live last night and we were talking about like our ancestors and our people and like all the ways that we keep them alive, and we are right now keeping a lot of negativity alive. And I think highlighting our greats, highlighting people that, people can emulate is an amazing thing for us to do because it is necessary for us to see ourselves in our most beautiful light. You know,
Hmm.
the negativity too, because we're both, but like it's extremely important for us to see ourselves as something more than that.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for this interview. It was amazing. Thank you for sharing and being open and vulnerable and, always having great conversation. And I will talk to you later.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to speak on your platform. Definitely appreciate that and thinking about me. And thank y'all who stayed here and tuned in and listened to us. I appreciate it. You could be doing anything, but y'all here with us listening in. So thank you.
That's key. Okay, well, I will talk to you guys later. My name is Precious. This is the Pocket of Sunshine. We are a wellness group business, all about healing, self love, self care, herbal products, a wellness workshops, all the stuff that you need for healing. Come check us out, and I will talk to you all later.
All right.